Hello viewers, you're welcome to the Before You Say I Do series. You know, it's Family Month here in Citi, and of course we have so many programs and events for you this time. So all you need to do is just stick around, keep watching Citi TV and keep listening to Citi 97.3 FM. Well, mostly before families are formed, there's that process of marriage. And before one is declared married, there's also that important step of saying I do. In a world where love conquers all, there's more that meets the eye than just, happily ever after. So join us as we delve into the intricacies and unspoken truths of relationship before vows are exchanged. You are welcome to Before You Say I Do series. And my name is Chris Carter. I want to say a very big thank you to our sponsors for this family month, Dano Milk and GTP. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, I will be introducing you to my guest and we'll delve right into the topic of the day. You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the Before You Say I Do series. So on today's episode of Before You Say I Do, we're diving into a topic that hits close to home to a lot of couples, and that is dealing with the X factor. How do past relationships actually affect the present relationships? Well, joining me in the studio now is Reverend Benny Osei Dua, who is a coach and a counselor. Hello, sir.
Hi.
How are you?
I do well, thank you.
How's everything?
I'm doing well, thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have you here, you know that, right?
It's a great honor always to be here.
All right, so the X factor. How does the X factor actually affect present relationships? Because obviously it's the past.
So, well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, and a great month celebration to all your cherished viewers. Exes are part of what life becomes, because you get yourself committed to a relationship that tends not to work out. So at the end of the day, you walk away, they walk away, but the walking away doesn't mean that everything actually comes to an end. There are some situations where there are things that still ties the two of you. It might not be physical. Sometimes it could be emotional. Sometimes it could be psychological.
Right.
Because of your engagements and experiences in the past. The person doesn't need to be physically present in your life to influence your life.
Right.
So excess becomes part of your current relationship by virtue of the fact that as you were with the person, you created memories. Memories are not things you can throw away. I know sometimes people do well to suppress certain memories. And by virtue of that, I mean, they travel a long journey with trying not to remember certain things. But sometimes some of these memories are very deep-seated. You cannot throw away. Along the line, something happens, it triggers, and you begin to actually bring back some of these memories which plays, in your life. So when we talk about exes, they are these individuals you had a relationship with, you had a thing with in the past, that to some extent has an influence, be it positive or negative. There is an influence, and that's exactly what we are referring to here.
But can these lingering feelings with exes impact your readiness for marriage?
Hugely.
How and why?
So a study has shown that about 65% of people have admitted to the fact that their previous relationships have affected their lives a lot, both in the positive and in the negative. What is even scary is that 25%, when the study was conducted, actually confirmed that they have what we call retroactive jealousy.
Which one?
Retroactive jealousy.
Okay,
So basically,
retroactive
yes.
jealousy. Okay.
So this is basically where you have a partner now, but you had a partner, so there's an ex.
Right.
Now your current partner feels a level of jealousy towards the ex by virtue of some of the some of the things that you might have testified,
Right.
shared,
Right.
maybe not really comparing, but sometimes there are instances where there are comparisons
A lot.
which brings about a lot of these things, and it builds a level of jealousy, and if you're not careful, people begin to loathe or hate your ex, and seeing them around you, especially if you've got kids together, or there's something that brings the two of you maybe in one room, it becomes, if you're not careful, a very toxic environment. You know, so yes, past relationships can have a very huge impact in your current, and if it's not managed well, it can actually end up breaking what you have good today.
Right. I actually understand what you're talking about. I think I've seen that scenario a lot, and I know how that also made me feel personally. So yeah, I understand. But the question now is, how can that be addressed between the couple?
So first and foremost, it's very important to understand that these impact is there. So first is acknowledgement. It is believed that accepting the fact that you have an issue or a concern
Right.
is the first step towards addressing any of those issues.
Right.
So having that readiness to accept the fact that, listen, this is present in my life. Sometimes it's to no doing of yours. It could be by virtue of the fact that you might have shared some things together,
Right.
or maybe have even a child together. By virtue of the fact that there's a child between the two of you,
That makes it even
it
stronger.
makes it really stronger.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful, there are instances where people, in the name of trying to keep or manage the life of the child they had together,
Right.
end up lingering way back into those relationships again. So there are very important ways for you to really address these things if you intend to manage it. And one of it is, one, accepting; two, having very strong, open conversations about this.
Okay.
And this is not only with your partner, but even with your ex.
Okay.
There are people who actually don't just wake up from those relationships. They wake up with baggages. They wake up with certain things that they used to do in their relationship, and constantly they keep comparing where they are. They might not verbalize it, they might not speak it out, but their actions and reactions shows a level of dissatisfaction as to where they are,
Yeah.
and constantly wishing that they could actually end up elsewhere, or end up where
They used to
they
be.
used to be. I heard a story of this young lady who broke up with this boyfriend for over 9 months. They never spoke, they never met, and one day they went to the mall, and guess what? This was the guy. His cologne brought memories.
Back.
That alone,
Oh my God.
the cologne, the perfume this guy was wearing brought back memories. And like, okay, I don't have your numbers anymore. You know how sometimes people try to be manipulative.
Yes.
Oh, so because of this, you don't call me again.
Don't call me.
And so, oh well, I don't have your number. You blocked me. It's okay. You can have it. And that was the beginning of something they never planned. In my local language, there's something they say that lie momo e chuofi lie he.
Translation?
Okay, all right. So the old firewood, all right, burns burns much more than even the new ones, because there's history. There are emotional connections. There are attachments. You are connected to this person at a level that you might not even have connected with this person, this new guy or this new lady, to that extent. So immediately those openings are made available to you. If you're not careful, you will slip way back into it. And sometimes recovery becomes very difficult. So, one of the typical things you need to do if you intend is to have very open, honest conversation. First with yourself, with your now partner, and then your ex.
So when you say with yourself, what are you telling yourself?
Is it something you really want to do?
like going into another
Yep,
relationship?
you need to have that reflection.
So are you also saying that a lot of people probably just want to fill the void of, you know,
So they
being
go on
with
a rebound.
Yeah, so they just go on a rebound.
Exactly. A lot of people, see,
A lot of people. I agree with you.
there are people that are not happy where they are. They are not happy with the relationship in which they find themselves. A lot of things are wrong. They are not able to fix it. Instead of giving themselves time and finding help, they find the easy way out to walk away. But walking away doesn't mean you are out of it. So there are people who separate, but they are so much attached to those relationships.
Right.
There are some emotional ties that are, you know, deeply knitted in the two of you. See, if one of you show up in a room and the other joins, something changes in the atmosphere for them.
Right.
So there are some deep connections that you haven't dealt with, and now suddenly you found someone, and this person you are only using as a sub. The person is only filling a space, and they can never make up for what you might be missing constantly. I have dealt with this person who even confessed to the extent that when he's making love with this other lady, the one he is with now, it doesn't work. So he needs to now program his mind to think he's having or making love with the ex. At that point, there is something psychologically that is twitched, and emotionally there is something that is wrong. If you don't fix it, trust me, you will wallow back, or you will end up having to incite yourself with so many different things just so that you can be able to make love with the one you are with, you know, today.
Right. So would we say that actually affects marriages?
Hugely. See, God is wise, and because I'm a pastor, I'm allowed to, you know, I know Citi is also a very Christian station. God is very smart and intelligent, you know, very all-knowing. The reason why he's always advised that divorce is not good, breakups are not just I want to walk away. It's not really just like that. See, out of anger, I could walk away. Maybe what you need is separation. You need to take a break.
You need a break.
All right? It's important because people really never many times walk away. People really never many times walk away. Yes, to some extent, they try to bring in some defense mechanisms.
Always.
So block the number.
Yes.
You know, but how do
Delete
you block
everything.
how do you block the
Memories.
What do you do about that? Which doctor can take it out? Do you understand? See, sometimes this guy or this lady might never be in the place, but you know his cologne, you know his body pH, the smell of his body. Someone walked past you in church or at the mall or at the funeral, and for the next 2 hours everything you do is going back to what used to, and this guy or this lady is not even there. How do you take that out? So people really never really walk away. You might physically, but there are other aspects of it that never really happened.
So are we saying that for instance, if someone that still has, you know, all those lingering feelings and lingering emotions and really wants to be with the other person or really misses the other person, are we saying that their marriages might not work, or they will work, but it might work, but, you know, he's not going to be fully happy. He or she is not going to be fully happy.
You need to work at it. There are places you can find help. There are counseling rooms that can help you. See, when I spoke about having honest conversations about it, accepting the fact that we have an unfinished business.
Yeah.
But that unfinished business cannot happen.
Yeah.
And that honest conversation with yourself. I remember a friend was sharing about someone that she fell for. I mean, this guy swept, you know, her off her feet. And along the line, they are both married. But they got to connect, you know, when they traveled and met somewhere. And this guy was making advances, but then she said something. If we didn't do it when we're both
Together,
single, now it cannot happen.
Yeah.
So it's a mindset. you need to come to the point of having that, frank conversation with yourself that this is something you need to deal with. So the honesty is very critical. Now, after that, you need to be able to come to the place of, how do I manage this emotional baggage off your head?
Right.
See, these things can follow you everywhere. Okay. And if you don't handle it critically, it can be able to hurt you.
All right. Okay. On that note, it's time for us to take a quick break. We'll be right back, okay, with this conversation. All right, so welcome back. It's still Before You Say I Do series, and we're having this conversation with Reverend Osei Dua, who is a counselor and a coach. And we've been speaking about the X factor, the X factor in a relationship. There are people that want to get married, but they still have that lingering feelings of emotions and thoughts, that follow them from their past relationship into their present relationship. All right, so you were talking about seeing therapists or maybe counselors. And what about people that cannot, afford counselors? What do they do?
I think there are a lot of organizations here in Ghana where you can actually be able to walk in and they will support. Well, if you go to a church, I know today many churches have very qualified, either clinical psychologists and counselors, very certified.
Right.
A lot of churches are taking these conversations very serious because post-marital counseling is becoming something that is critical in a lot of organizations. There are, certain hospitals that have setups where you can find some of these help. There are individuals, of course, if you have your money, you can pay to a counselor, they'll make time for you. And these things are very critical. Don't take it for granted because it can be able to give you, some levels of anxiety and stress that can be able to mess up your life if you don't treat it. Because some of these things comes with even some emotional, trauma that if it's not handled well, can be able to have a lingering effect or not just your relationship, but even your children.
Wow.
Because some of these children are there by virtue of who was. And seeing them, I've had many stories of people that are products of what was.
Yes.
And anytime they see these children, they have hatred towards them. They loathe these kids by virtue of the fact that this person had something to do with something I don't want to have in my life again. And constantly, these kids are at the receiving end of the stick.
Yes.
Just by the virtue of the fact that they were product of that relationship.
Right. So earlier on, you spoke about, like a man and a woman who were both exes that met themselves, somewhere when they both traveled, and then she kind of like stopped him when he was trying to make advances. So let's talk about boundaries.
Correct.
Boundaries between exes. How do you create those boundaries?
Okay.
Especially as a woman. I know it happens the other way sometimes, but mostly it's the men that come back chasing the woman. So how do you create those boundaries?
You don't need to do it or try and manage this alone. The mystery is with doing it with your partner. That is how it works. There are people who feel it was my relationship, I'm going to try and manage this alone. But the trick, you see, the challenge is that secrecy is the strength of the enemy.
Right.
Anything you want to overcome, take it out of the public place.
Oh, right.
I have seen mad people pregnant and no one saw them do it. So if you can deal with privacy, you have dealt with the monster of this problem we're talking about. Why are you trying to engage your ex without your current being in the conversation? So never try and have these boundaries set without this partner of
Right,
yours.
right.
All right, so get them involved. It's the first thing you need to do. And when you can be able to sit across and have that conversation with your partner by your side, and you can give them the power to say that, see, where I am, I'm vulnerable.
Right.
If you see me go beyond these lines, I give you that power to take control of me. It helps to be able to then submit yourself to the process that someone can hold your hand and give you help.
Right. So this also applies to men too, right?
Of course.
It works the same way.
Both ways. Both ways. So setting boundaries are very important.
Right.
And you need to have the discipline to know that don't try and be secretive to this. You need to work through it.
All right. So another very important question. Should you keep talking to your ex?
For?
I don't know. Some people say, "Oh, we're just friends. You never know where we'll meet in the future.
Friends
You
of-
never know which help that we might need from each other." I'm sure you've heard so many of them.
These are usually my questions. Friends of what? See, it's already a deep, winding, steepy road. It's very slippery. Going down that lane can be very dangerous. Why are you keeping friendship with your ex? Unless you have a child together or children together, and even with that, the conversation must only be about the children. That's it. You see, those are the boundaries you need to set, even if there is. But if not, you're trying to walk away. You're trying to get off something that did not help you in the past. Walk away. Unless you are not ready for it. And that's why earlier on I said that the first person you need to have that conversation with is yourself. Because if you're not ready, sometimes your ex has money. You feel, oh, Charlie, I'm in a tight corner. I need to. What if you never met him? Or you never met her?
What would you have done?
What would you have done? Do you understand? So people give themselves reasons to want to go back. As long as you are in that corner, trust me, something is going to happen that can destroy. Someone lost their marriage. They're getting married over the weekend. And they just decided, you know what, for the last time,
Let me go and...
let me just go. Let me just... This happened here in Kwewu. Let me just... But what the person didn't know was that the guy who is about to marry you, who is coming from abroad, that man you slept with happens to be an uncle, one of the fathers that is about to give your hand into marriage to this boy.
Wow.
He showed up there, was sitting there. This girl came out and said, if this is the one, it's not going to work. I'm telling you, see, this thing destroys homes. It destroys lives. But if you are very, very, if you like, encouraging of the thought and the conversation about it, of course, then go for it. No conversations. You have nothing to talk about.
Wow. So is there anything like to cleanse the relationship, especially to have a score sheet that is clean?
To some level, yes, but many times not totally.
All right, explain why.
So score sheets are, there by virtue of the fact that some things might have occurred in the past, and you felt that I need to be able to take them out and at least balance things up. When these things are, present in your life, you want to face it. Critically, you can go back to some of the things that I have mentioned, having that open conversation, being able to ensure that you can be able to seek closure.
Right.
This is very important. Seeking closure would involve communicating and having those honest conversations. The next step is to forgive yourself. It is very important. Some things you might have done, some things they might have done. Because if you don't forgive yourself, you will not be able to forgive the other person.
Yes.
If you have been able to do that, then establish those boundaries. These things will be able to help you to keep those calls off. Then you can be able to manage yourself through them. But even more important, focus on self-development. What else can I add that can get me away from this room, this bondage in which I find myself? Because this can hold you bound. It actually touched on certain aspects of you and caused you to navigate into certain aspects you never knew about yourself. Suddenly you are here. So you can be able to actually manage yourself if you intend. These are some of the things you have to do.
Right.
Focus on self-development and build those boundaries. Forgive yourself, seek closure, and have those open conversations with yourself.
Wow. This has been very interesting. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed this, and I'm sure the viewers also enjoyed this. But before I let you go, how can people reach out to you? How can people find you in case they want to call you and say, Reverend, I need to talk to someone?
All right. So my WhatsApp, 0500 200 944. You can reach me, 0500 200 944. I'm also on LinkedIn. It's Bernard Oseidia, or any of the social media platforms, Bernard or Benny or Oseidia, you won't find me.
Right. All right. Thank you so much. It was really nice having you on this episode of Before You Say I Do. And we just had a conversation about the X Factor, and he spewed a lot of knowledge. He told us a lot of things that we are supposed to actually know and do before we actually say I do. But before we go, I would like to say a very big thank you to our sponsors, Dano Milk and GTP. Thank you so much for being a sponsor of our Family Month right here on Citi TV and Citi 97.3 FM. My name is Chris Carter, and see you on the next episode of Before You Say I Do series.